The USS Liberty moved through space like a ghost, all non-essential systems powered down to avoid detection. Jake Martinez sat in his captain's chair, watching the tactical display as they approached the edge of the star system. What they saw there made everyone on the bridge hold their breath. 3 enormous ships hung in space near a small planet. Each vessel was easily 100 times larger than the Liberty, shaped like massive golden pyramids that caught and reflected the systems. Strange energy patterns flowed across their surfaces like living light, and Jake could see smaller ships moving around them like insects around giants. "My God," whispered Dr. Johnson. "They're beautiful and terrifying," added Amy Watson. "I'm reading energy levels that shouldn't be possible. Those ships are generating more power than our entire home fleet combined." Sam Rodriguez worked frantically at his communication station. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the planet's surface. There are people down there, and they're begging for mercy." Jake's jaw tightened. "Put it on speaker." The bridge filled with desperate voices, speaking in an alien language. Sam's computer translated the words, but the emotion needed no translation. Fear, desperation, and hopelessness echoed through the Liberty's bridge. "Please, great ones, we will serve," came one translated voice. "Our children know nothing of rebellion. Spare them, and we will worship you forever." The response came from the Golden Ships, broadcast on all frequencies. The voice that answered was deep and rich, but completely without warmth or compassion. "Your species has shown independence. Independence is a disease that spreads. The cure is elimination. Accept your fate with gratitude, for you die by divine will." Jake felt sick to his stomach. He was watching genocide happen in real time, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Liberty was too small, too weak to make any difference. "Captain," Amy called out urgently, "the lead ship is powering up some kind of weapon. Energy readings are going through the roof." On the main screen, the largest of the golden pyramids began to glow brighter. Streams of energy flowed toward its pointed tip, building to something that hurt to look at directly. Then the weapon fired. A beam of pure white light stretched from the alien ship to the planet below. Where it touched, the world's surface simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone, as if it had never existed. The beam swept across continents in seconds, erasing mountains, oceans, and billions of lives without effort. When it was over, nothing remained but a dead rock floating in space. "Dear God," Dr. Johnson whispered. "They just killed an entire world in minutes." Jake forced himself to speak, though his voice came out rough. "Sam, are you recording this?" "Yes, sir." "Everything. Good. Humanity needs to see what we're facing. That was when everything went wrong." "Captain," Amy shouted, "we've been spotted. One of their ships is turning toward us." Jake's blood went cold. "How is that possible? We're running full stealth." "I don't know, sir, but they're heading straight for us, and they're fast." The golden ship moved through space faster than anything Jake had ever seen. In seconds, it grew from a distant speck to a massive wall of alien metal and energy filling their view screen. "Incoming transmission," Sam reported. "On screen." The bridge filled with the image of something that should not exist. The being that appeared before them stood 12 feet tall, its body made of what looked like living crystal. Blue and white light flowed through its transparent flesh, pulsing like a heartbeat. It had 4 arms, each ending in hands that crackled with energy, and its face was beautiful and terrible at the same time. When it spoke, Its voice carried power that made the ship's hull vibrate. Small creatures in your metal shell. I am Divine Commander Zyros, voice of the Eternal Ones. You have witnessed the glory of divine justice. Kneel now and worship, and your deaths will be swift. Jake stood up slowly. Every instinct told him to run, to hide, to do anything but face this being. But he was a human, and humans did not kneel to anyone. I am Captain Jake Martinez of the Earth vessel Liberty. We come in peace, seeking dialogue between our species. Zeros laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. Peace? Dialogue? You speak as if you were equals. Look around you, tiny creature. Do you see equals here? The alien gestured, and suddenly the Liberty's shields began failing. Sparks flew from control panels as systems overloaded. Stop! Jake shouted. We pose no threat to you. Threat? Zyros seemed amused. You could not threaten a god if you tried for 1,000 years. But you have something we want. What? Your ship's memory banks, your technology, your biological data. All of it will help us understand your species before we cleanse your worlds. Jake felt cold fear settle in his stomach. You're going to attack Earth? Attack? No, small one. We do not attack insects. We simply remove them. Your kind shows, too. Much independence, too much defiance. Like the species whose world you just watched die, you must be eliminated before your disease spreads. Amy was working desperately at her station. Captain, they're using some kind of tractor beam. I can't break free. I'll ask you one more time, Zyros continued. Kneel and worship. Accept that you are nothing before the divine. Do this, and I will make your species' extinction quick and painless. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Sam was pale but still working at his station. Amy was fighting to keep their systems online. Dr. Johnson stood with his shoulders straight despite his fear. These were his people, and they deserved better than to grovel before a false god. Never, Jake said clearly. Zyros tilted his crystalline head. Interesting. Most species beg by now. Very well. You will serve as an example. The alien raised one hand, and the air around it began to shimmer. Jake watched in horror as a nearby asteroid suddenly flashed and turned to dust. The alien had destroyed a mountain-sized rock with just a thought. Behold divine power, Zyros said. This is what awaits any who defy the Eternal Ones. Jake's mind raced. They were trapped, outgunned, and facing something beyond human understanding. But maybe that was exactly what they needed to do. Be human in the face of the impossible. Sam, he said quietly. Are you still transmitting to Earth? Yes, sir. But they're jamming us now. Good. At least Admiral Thompson will know what happened. Here. Zyros waved his hand again, and the Liberty's engines died completely. The ship was pulled inexorably toward the massive alien vessel. As they approached, Jake could see that the golden hull was covered in symbols that seemed to move and change as he watched. Your ship will be examined, Zyros announced. Your bodies will be studied. And when we are finished learning about your species, we will find your homeworld and cleanse it of your presence. The Liberty was drawn into a massive docking bay inside the alien ship. As the bay doors closed behind them, cutting off their view of the stars, Jake realized that they might be the last free humans in the galaxy. But they were still human, and that had to count for something. Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars through the wide viewing window. The ship moved quietly through space, far from Earth and the safety of human territory. Jake had been exploring the outer edges of known space for 3 months now, looking for new worlds and new friends among the stars. The Liberty was not a warship. It carried scientists, diplomats, and peaceful explorers. Jake liked it that way. Humanity had learned long ago that making friends was better than making enemies. The ship had comfortable rooms, good food, and the best computers Earth could build. Most importantly, it had a crew that trusted each other. "Captain," called Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez from his station. "I'm getting something strange on the long range. Sensors. Multiple signals, but they're not like anything in our database." Jake walked over to Sam's station. The young man had been with the Liberty for 2 years and knew his job well. If Sam said something was strange, it probably was. "What kind of signals?" Jake asked. "Distress calls, sir. But they're coming from dozens of different sources across this entire sector. All different languages, all different technologies. Some of them are very old, maybe weeks or months." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Are you saying there's been some kind of disaster out here?" "More than one disaster, sir. I'm trying to translate some of these messages now." The bridge became very quiet. Chief Engineer Amy Watson looked up from her engineering console. Dr. Carl Johnson, who had been reading in the corner, put down his book. Even the usually busy sounds of the ship seemed to fade away. Sam worked at his station for several minutes. His face grew more and more worried as he listened to the translated messages. Finally, he looked up at Jake with fear in his eyes. "Captain, these aren't disaster reports, they're warnings. All of them are warnings about something called the Zephyrian Empire. According to these messages, they're destroying entire worlds." "What do you mean, destroying?" Jake asked. "Complete genocide, sir. They're not just conquering planets. They're killing every living thing on them. Men, women, children, animals, even plants. Everything." Dr. Johnson stood up quickly. "That's impossible. What kind of species would do such a thing?" Sam continued reading the translations. "According to these messages, the Zephyrians call themselves gods. They believe they have the right to decide which species deserve to live and which should die. They've been expanding across this part of the galaxy for hundreds of years." Amy Watson joined the group around Sam's station. "How big is their empire?" "From what I can tell, huge. Maybe thousands of star systems, and they're still growing. The newest messages suggest they're moving this way." Jake felt the weight of command on his shoulders. The Liberty was just one small ship with a crew of 80 people. They were explorers, not soldiers. But they might be the only ones who could warn humanity about this threat. "Sam, try to get more detailed information about these Zephyrians. Amy, I want you to check our stealth systems. If these aliens are as dangerous as they sound, we don't want them to find us." "Already on it, Captain," Amy replied, hurrying back to her station. Jake walked to his command chair and activated the communication system. "This is Captain Martinez to Admiral Thompson at Earth Command. Priority Alpha message." The signal would take several hours to reach Earth, but Jake had to try. Admiral Lisa Thompson was a good leader and a good friend. She would know what to do with this information. While they waited for a response, Jake had the crew work on gathering more intelligence. They found fragments of data from destroyed ships, pieces of messages from dead worlds, and even some blurry images of Zephyrian vessels. What they learned made Jake's blood run cold. The Zephyrians were not just another alien species. They were something far worse. Their ships were massive, larger than Earth's biggest cities. Their technology was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. They could destroy planets with weapons, That bent reality itself. But the most frightening thing was their attitude. From the intercepted communications, it was clear that the Zephyrians truly believed they were gods. They spoke of other species as if they were insects or diseases to be removed. They felt no guilt, no mercy, no doubt about their actions. Hours later, Admiral Thompson's response finally arrived. Her face appeared on the main screen, looking tired but alert. "Jake, I've reviewed your report. This is deeply troubling news. How reliable is this intelligence?" "Very reliable, Admiral. We've confirmed the information from multiple independent sources. The Zephyrian Empire is real, and it's heading toward human space." Thompson was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see her thinking through the options. Earth's fleet was strong, but it was designed for exploration and defense, not for fighting gods. "Jake, I want you to continue gathering intelligence, but stay hidden. Do not, under any circumstances, make contact with these Zephyrians. We need to know more before we decide how to respond." "Understood, Admiral. But I have to ask, what if we can't stay hidden? What if they find us? Then you run. Get back to Earth with whatever information you have. The survival of humanity might depend on what you learn out there." The communication ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people, brave people. They had signed up to explore the unknown, but none of them had expected to find something like this. "Captain," Sam called out, "I'm detecting new activity in the next system over. Multiple large ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel." Jake's heart started beating faster. "Zephyrian ships?" "I think so, sir. The energy signatures match what we've been seeing in the wreckage." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Set course for that system, but keep us at maximum stealth. We need to see these aliens for ourselves." As the Liberty changed course toward the unknown, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying toward their doom. But humanity needed to know what they were facing. Even if it meant risking everything, they had to see these self-proclaimed gods with their own eyes. The stars seemed colder now, and the darkness between them felt full of threats. Somewhere out there, an empire of false gods was destroying everything in its path. And Jake Martinez, captain of one small human ship, was about to become the first person to witness their terrible power. The inside of the Zephyrian ship was like nothing Jake Martinez had ever imagined. As armed guards escorted him and his crew through vast corridors, he tried to memorize every detail. The walls were made of the same living crystal as their captors, pulsing with internal light that responded to the aliens' movements and emotions. The corridors were enormous, built for beings much larger than humans. Jake and his crew looked like children walking through a cathedral designed for giants. Strange. Music filled the air, not heard but felt, vibrating through their bones in ways that made Jake's teeth ache. "Keep your eyes open," Jake whispered to his crew as they walked. "Remember everything." Their guards were similar to Commander Zyros, but smaller, standing only 8 or 9 feet tall. Their crystalline bodies glowed with softer light, and they carried weapons that looked like staffs topped with floating energy spheres. When they spoke among themselves, their voices created harmonies that hurt human ears. After what felt like hours of walking, they were brought to a massive chamber that took Jake's breath away. The room was the size of several football fields, with a ceiling that curved up into darkness far above. Pillars of pure light supported the space, and in the center sat something that could only be described as a throne, but it was not made of metal or stone. The throne was a living thing, grown from the same crystal as the ship itself. It pulsed with deep blue light and seemed to breathe. Streams of energy flowed around it like rivers of liquid starlight. And on that throne sat the most terrifying being Jake had ever seen. High Divine Kazeth was massive even by Zephyrian standards, easily 15 feet tall and broad enough to crush a human with one hand. His crystalline body contained entire galaxies of swirling light, and when he moved, reality seemed to bend around him. His 4 arms were each as thick as tree trunks, and his face held the terrible beauty of a star going supernova. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. So these are the creatures from the outer darkness. How small they are. How fragile. Jake forced himself to stand straight and look directly at the alien ruler. I am Captain Jake Martinez of the United Earth Navy. I demand to know why you have taken us prisoner. Kazeth's laughter filled the enormous chamber like thunder. Demand? From me? Little creature, do you understand what you stand before? A being who calls himself a god but bleeds the same as anyone else. The chamber fell silent. The light flowing through Kazeth's body turned from blue to angry red. When he spoke again, his voice could have shattered mountains. I am High Divine. Kazeth, ruler of the 3rd sector, bringer of holy order, voice of universal truth. I have ruled this region of space for 3,000 of your years. I have seen the birth and death of 10,000 species. Civilizations rise and fall at my word. And you, tiny speck of flesh, dare to suggest I am mortal? Jake felt the urge to step back, to run, to do anything but face this creature's anger. But Amy Watson was watching him. And so was Sam Rodriguez and Dr. Johnson. His crew needed to see that humans did not break no matter what they faced. Yes, Jake said simply. I do. Kazeth raised one massive hand, and Jake felt an invisible force lift him off the ground. He hung in the air, unable to move, as the alien god studied him like a bug under a microscope. Interesting, Kazeth mused. Most species grovel by now, most beg for mercy, but you show defiance. Why? Because that's what humans do, Jake managed to say through the crushing pressure around his chest. Humans? Kazeth repeated the word like he was tasting something unpleasant. Yes, Commander Zyros mentioned your species' name. Tell me, human, where is your homeworld? We will add it to our list of places to cleanse. Go to hell. Kazeth's eyes blazed brighter. Hell? An interesting concept. Perhaps I will create one especially for your species. While Jake was held suspended in the air, Amy Watson was using every trick she knew to study their captors without being obvious about it. She had a small scanner hidden in her uniform sleeve, and she was getting readings that shocked her. The Zephyrians were not what they appeared to be. Their crystal bodies were not natural. They were artificial constructs powered by incredibly advanced technology. Each alien was essentially a biological machine, with quantum computers running their consciousness and energy manipulators giving them their divine powers. Even more interesting, Amy could see signs of wear in their systems. These beings were old, far older than they should be able to survive. Their technology was keeping them alive past their natural lifespans, but it was not perfect. There were flaws, weaknesses that a clever engineer might be able to exploit. Dr. Johnson was making discoveries of his own. As the ship's doctor, he had been trained to observe alien physiology, and what he saw made him think. The Zephyrians moved in specific patterns, always returning to certain areas of the ship at regular intervals. It reminded him of patients with chronic conditions who needed regular treatment. He noticed that their captor's light grew dimmer over time, and they had to touch the ship's walls to recharge themselves. Whatever technology kept them alive, it was not perfect. They were dependent on their ship, their tools, their artificial systems. For all their talk of divinity, they were as dependent on technology as any other species. "Your silence is disappointing," Kazeth said to Jake. "But no matter. We have other ways of learning what we need to know." The alien god gestured, and one of the guards brought forward a device that looked like a crown made of liquid metal. "This will extract every memory from your mind, every secret of your species, every detail of your technology, every location of your worlds. And when we are finished, you will worship me as your god, because that is all your broken mind will be capable of understanding." Jake struggled against the invisible force holding him, but it was useless. The crown device floated toward his head, reaching out with metal tendrils that seemed eager to burrow into his brain. "Wait," Dr. Johnson called out suddenly. "If you're truly gods, why do you need our technology?" Kazeth turned his terrible gaze on the doctor. "What did you say?" I said. "If you're really divine beings, why do you need to steal technology from mortals? Shouldn't gods create, not steal?" The alien ruler's light flared with anger. "We do not steal. We collect knowledge to better serve the universe by cleansing it of imperfection." "But you still need our technology," Dr. Johnson pressed. "That suggests you're not all-powerful. That suggests you have limitations." Amy Watson caught on to what the doctor was doing. "He's right. If you were really gods, you wouldn't need our ship's computers or our biological data. You'd already know everything. Unless," Sam Rodriguez added, understanding dawning in his voice, "you're not gods at all. You're just another species with advanced technology." The chamber erupted with angry sounds from the gathered Zephyrians. Kazeth's light turned so bright it hurt to look at, and his voice became a roar that shook the crystal walls. "Silence. You dare question the divine nature of the Eternal Ones? You will be made to understand your place." But Jake saw something in that rage that gave him hope. Real gods would not be angered by the doubts of mortals. Real gods would simply laugh and prove their divinity. But these beings were furious because they knew the humans were right. They were not gods. They were just very old, very powerful, and very good at pretending to be something they were not. And if they were not gods, then they could be fought. They could be beaten. They could be proven mortal, just like everything else in the universe. Jake smiled, even as the metal crown device reached for his head. For the first time since being captured, he felt hope. The metal crown device was inches from Jake's head when the ship suddenly shuddered. Emergency lights flashed throughout the massive chamber, and the crystalline walls changed from blue to red. High Divine Kazeth's concentration broke for just a moment, and Jake dropped to the floor. "What is happening?" Kazeth roared at his subordinates. "Unknown, High Divine," one of them replied. "We are detecting system failures in the lower levels." Jake looked around quickly and saw Amy Watson give him the slightest nod. She had done something. He did not know what, but she had done something. Security Chief Ryan Kelly had been quiet during their capture, letting the others talk while he studied their guards and their surroundings. Ryan was a former Marine who had joined the Liberty's crew because he believed in peaceful exploration. But he was still a Marine, and Marines never forgot how to fight. When the ship shook and the lights changed, Ryan saw his chance. The Zephyrian, Guards were looking around in confusion, their attention split between the prisoners and whatever emergency was happening. Ryan had noticed that their weapons were connected to their bodies by energy flows, probably controlled by thought. If he could disrupt that connection, Ryan grabbed a small emergency light from his belt and threw it as hard as he could at the nearest guard's weapon. The simple human device struck the floating energy sphere and created a brief electrical feedback. The guard stumbled, his crystalline body flickering as his weapon fell to the floor. "Now!" Ryan shouted. Jake rolled away from the crown device as Amy Watson pulled out a small device she had been hiding in her boot. It looked like a simple emergency beacon, but she had modified it using spare parts from her scanner. When she activated it sent out a signal designed to interfere with quantum field generators. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Zephyrians' bodies began to flicker like bad television reception. Their movements became jerky and uncontrolled. Some of them fell to their knees as their artificial systems struggled to compensate. "Impossible!" Kazeth screamed. "What have you done?" "Proved you're not gods," Amy replied, helping Jake to his feet. "Your bodies are machines, and machines can be broken." Dr. Johnson grabbed Sam Rodriguez and pulled him toward the chamber's exit. Ryan Kelly picked up one of the fallen Zephyrian weapons and found that it responded to his touch, though clumsily. The weapon was designed for beings with 4 arms and quantum-enhanced nervous systems, but it could still fire. "Move!" Jake ordered his crew. "Back to the ship!" They ran through corridors filled with confused and angry Zephyrians. Amy's device was affecting the entire vessel, causing systems to malfunction and the aliens to lose control of their powers. Emergency alarms echoed through the crystal passages as they stumbled through the maze-like ship. "This way," Ryan called, using his military training to navigate by the ship's structure. "The docking bay should be in this direction." Behind them, Jake could hear Kazeth's voice booming through the ship's communication system. "Stop them! They must not escape! They know too much!" The group reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Sam Rodriguez checked his scanner and pointed left. "That way leads back to the docking bay where they're keeping our ship." But before they could move, a group of Zephyrian guards appeared at the other end of the corridor. These aliens seemed less affected by Amy's device, their systems more stable. They raised their weapons and prepared to fire. Ryan stepped forward with the alien weapon he had captured. "Keep going! I'll hold them off!" "We're not leaving you behind," Jake said firmly. "Captain, with respect, shut up and run. That's an order from your security chief." Ryan opened fire with the Zephyrian weapon. Bolts of energy struck the walls and created explosions of crystal fragments. The guards took cover and returned fire, but Ryan had found a good position behind a structural support beam. The rest of the crew ran toward the docking bay while Ryan bought them time. Dr. Johnson fell behind, struggling to keep up with the younger crew members. Amy Watson slowed down to help him. "Go ahead," Johnson panted. "I'm too old for this." "Nobody gets left behind," Amy replied, putting his arm around her shoulder. "That's what humans do." They reached the docking bay to find their ship surrounded by more Zephyrian guards. The USS Liberty sat in the middle of the vast space, looking small and fragile compared to the alien technology around it. "How do we get past them?" Sam asked. Jake studied the situation. There were at least 20 guards between them and their ship. Even with Ryan's captured weapon, they were outnumbered and outgunned. But then he noticed something important. "Amy, is your device still affecting their systems?" "Yes, but the effect is getting weaker. They're adapting to it." "How long do we have?" "Maybe 10 more minutes before they compensate completely." Jake made a decision that would either save them all or get them killed. Sam, can you access the Liberty systems from here? Maybe, if I can get close enough to the ship's external communication array. Do it. Amy, I need you to overload your device. Give us one big disruption, even if it burns out the device completely. That might affect our own equipment, too. Better than being stuck here forever. Amy worked quickly to modify her device while Sam tried to establish a connection with their ship. Jake watched the Zephyrian guards, noting how they moved and positioned themselves. They were disciplined but not flexible. They followed patterns, like machines following programming. Got it, Sam announced. I'm connected to the Liberty's computer. Good! On my signal, start the engines and open the cargo bay doors. Amy, you ready? Ready, Captain. Ryan, Jake called into his communicator. We're at the ship. Fall back now. Through the corridors, they could hear Ryan fighting his way toward them. Explosions echoed off the crystal walls as he retreated under fire. Now! Jake shouted. Amy triggered her modified device. Every Zephyrian in the docking bay suddenly collapsed as their systems overloaded. Sam activated the Liberty's engines, and the small human ship rose into the air. The cargo bay doors opened, creating a way for them to get aboard. Ryan appeared in the doorway, running as fast as he could with 3 Zephyrian guards chasing him. He was wounded, his uniform torn and bloody, but he was still moving. Jump! Jake called to him. Ryan leaped from the platform just as the Liberty moved into position. He landed hard in the cargo bay as the guards fired at the retreating ship. The energy bolts struck the Liberty's shields, overloading them but not penetrating. Get us out of here, Jake ordered as they scrambled aboard their ship. Sam ran to the bridge and began the launch sequence. The Liberty's engines roared to life, pushing them toward the docking bay exit. But the massive doors were beginning to close as the Zephyrians regained control of their systems. We're not going to make it, Amy shouted from her engineering station. The gap was getting smaller, and the Liberty was not moving fast enough. In seconds, they would be trapped inside the alien ship forever. But Jake had one more card to play. Sam, transmit everything we've learned back to Earth. Full data burst. Maximum power. That will drain our engines, sir. We won't have power to escape. Do it anyway. Even if we don't make it out, humanity needs to know what they're facing. Sam's fingers flew over his controls. The Liberty's communication array sent out a powerful signal containing everything they had learned about the Zephyrians. Their technology, their weaknesses, their plans for human space. All of it went racing toward Earth at faster than light speed. The ship shuddered as the engines lost power. They were drifting toward the closing doors with no way to maneuver. That was when Ryan Kelly proved that humans never give up. Despite his wounds, he had made his way to the ship's weapons console. The Liberty was not a warship, but it had defensive weapons designed to clear debris and small asteroids. Firing everything we have, Ryan announced. The Liberty's modest weapons struck the docking bay doors just as they were about to close. The doors were designed to withstand the vacuum of space, not weapons fire from inside. They cracked and bent, creating just enough of an opening for the small human ship to slip through. The Liberty shot out of the alien vessel and into open space. Behind them, the massive Zephyrian ship was already turning to pursue. But Jake's crew had accomplished something no other species had ever done. They had seen the false gods up close. They had learned their secrets, and they had escaped to tell the tale. Now they just had to survive long enough to get home. The USS Liberty limped through space, its engines damaged and its crew exhausted. Jake Martinez sat in his captain's chair, watching the stars and hoping that the Zephyrian ships had given up their pursuit. They had been running for 3 days, jumping from system to system, always looking over their shoulders. "Captain," Sam Rodriguez called from his station. "I'm picking up Earth signals. We're almost home." Jake felt relief wash over him like a warm wave. "Take us to Earth Command. Best possible speed." Dr. Johnson was treating Ryan Kelly's wounds in the medical bay. The security chief had taken several energy blasts during their escape, but he would live. Amy Watson was working around the clock to repair their damaged systems. Everyone was tired, scared, and worried about what they had learned. When they finally reached Earth, Jake was surprised by what greeted them. Instead of the usual traffic control signals, they were met by a full military escort. 6 heavy cruisers surrounded the Liberty and guided them to the most secure docking facility in human space. Admiral Lisa Thompson was waiting for them when they docked. Jake had known her for 10 years, but he had never seen her look so grim. Behind her stood President Helen Carter, the leader of all human worlds, and several other high-ranking officials Jake recognized from news broadcasts. "Jake," Admiral Thompson said as soon as he stepped off his ship, "thank God you made it back. We've been analyzing the data you transmitted. We need to talk immediately." They were taken to the most secure briefing room in Earth Command. The walls were lined with quantum scramblers to prevent any kind of electronic eavesdropping. When everyone was seated, President Carter spoke first. "Captain Martinez, your report has caused quite a stir. Are you absolutely certain about what you've told us? An alien empire that destroys entire worlds? Beings who claim to be gods?" "Yes, Madam President. I wish I could say otherwise, but we saw them destroy a planet full of innocent people. They didn't just kill everyone. They erased the entire world like it had never existed." Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Nick Foster leaned forward. "And you're saying they plan to do the same to Earth?" "To all human worlds," Jake confirmed. "They view independence as a disease that needs to be cured through genocide. They've been expanding across the galaxy for thousands of years, and we're next on their list." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had spread to dozens of star systems, but their total population was still less than 50 billion people. Against an empire that had conquered thousands of worlds, they seemed impossibly small. "What about their weaknesses?" "Admiral," Thompson asked, "your report mentioned that they're not actually gods." Amy Watson, who had been invited to the briefing because of her technical expertise, spoke up. "Their bodies are artificial constructs powered by quantum field generators. They're incredibly advanced, but they're still machines, and machines can be disrupted." "The device you used to escape, can it be replicated?" President Carter asked. "Yes, but not easily. The effect is temporary, and they adapt quickly. We might be able to use it once in a major battle, but after that, they'll be immune." Dr. Johnson added his own observations. "They're also dependent on their ships for power. I noticed they had to recharge regularly by touching the ship's walls. Their technology keeps them alive far beyond their natural lifespans, but it's not perfect." Admiral Foster studied the tactical data they had brought back. "These ships of theirs, how many are we talking about?" "The intelligence we gathered suggests they have thousands of vessels," Jake replied. "Each one larger than anything we've ever built. And according to the alien communications we intercepted, they're assembling a fleet to move into human space." "How long do we have?" President Carter asked. "Based on their previous expansion patterns, maybe 6 months, possibly less." The president stood up and walked to the room's main display screen. She activated a star map showing all of human space. 47 colonies spread across dozens of star systems, connected by trade routes and communication networks. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said quietly. We are facing the extinction of our species. An enemy with overwhelming technological superiority is coming to wipe us out completely. The question is, what do we do about it? Admiral Foster was the first to speak. We fight. It's what humans do. With what? Another official asked. Our entire fleet has maybe 300 ships. They have thousands, each one more powerful than our best vessels. We can't evacuate, Admiral Thompson pointed out. There's nowhere to run that they won't eventually find us. And we can't negotiate with beings who view us as a disease to be eliminated. Jake had been listening to the discussion, but his mind was working on the problem from a different angle. What if we don't fight them ship to ship? Everyone turned to look at him. What do you mean? President Carter asked. They're used to fighting other advanced civilizations, species with big fleets and powerful weapons, but that's not humanity's strength. We're not the biggest or the strongest, but we're adaptable. We think differently. Amy Watson caught on to what Jake was suggesting. You're talking about asymmetric warfare, hit-and-run tactics, guerrilla fighting. Exactly. They expect us to meet them in open battle with our fleet. Instead, we use our advantages, speed, flexibility, and the fact that they underestimate us. Admiral Foster looked intrigued. Go on. They think we're primitive. They see our small ships and simple technology and assume we're not a real threat. That arrogance is their weakness. Dr. Johnson nodded. Jake's right. During our capture, they treated us like curious specimens rather than dangerous enemies. They never considered that we might actually threaten them. President Carter returned to her seat. Captain Martinez, are you suggesting we can actually win against this empire? Jake thought about the planet he had watched die, about the billions of innocent people who had been erased in minutes. Then he thought about humanity. Stubborn, adaptable, never willing to give up even when facing impossible odds. I don't know if we can win, Madam President, but I know we can make them pay for every human life they take. And maybe, if we're very smart and very lucky, we can show the galaxy that gods can bleed. Admiral Thompson activated the room's main tactical display. What would you need? Our fastest ships, our best crews, and one chance to prove that these false gods are not as invincible as they think. The president looked around the room at her advisors. Admiral Foster, I want you to work with Captain Martinez on developing these new tactics. Admiral Thompson, begin mobilizing our fleet, but keep it hidden. We'll only get one surprise attack, so it has to count. She paused and looked directly at Jake. Captain, I'm promoting you to Admiral and putting you in charge of our new asymmetric warfare division. Your mission is to find a way to hurt these aliens badly enough that they think twice about attacking humanity. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The survival of his entire species might depend on the decisions he made in the coming months. There's one more thing, Amy Watson said. During our escape, I was able to upload a virus into their ship's computer system. It's designed to transmit detailed information about their technology to any human ship that scans them. If we can get close enough to their fleet, we can learn their weaknesses, Admiral Foster finished. Maybe even find a way to turn their own technology against them. President Carter stood up again. Ladies and gentlemen, 6 months from now, the most powerful empire in the galaxy will arrive at our doorstep expecting to find a helpless species ready for extinction. Instead, they're going to find humanity at war, and I pity any species that has never seen what humans are capable of when they're fighting for survival. As the meeting broke up and people began rushing off to prepare for the coming battle, Jake looked out the window at Earth hanging in space below. It was a small blue world, home to creatures who had only recently learned to travel between the stars. But it was his world and his species, and he would be damned if he let some false gods destroy it without a fight. The Zephyrians thought they were coming to exterminate another weak species. They had no idea they were about to meet humanity. Captain Emma Barnes stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the sensor readings that would have terrified most people. 50 massive Zephyrian ships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, glowing with the same golden light that Jake Martinez had described in his reports. The Defiance was humanity's newest warship, built specifically to fight the Zephyrian threat. It was sleek and fast, only a kilometer long compared to the aliens' 100-kilometer behemoths. But it carried the most advanced technology Earth could produce, including weapons designed from Amy Watson's analysis of Zephyrian weaknesses. All stations report ready, Captain, announced Lieutenant Ben Murphy from the tactical station. We're running dark and they haven't detected us yet. Emma nodded. The Defiance was hidden behind a large asteroid, using its stealth systems to avoid detection. They had been waiting here for 3 days, knowing the aliens would choose this route into human space. Status on Atlas? Emma asked. AI systems are fully operational, replied Commander Kate Williams from the engineering station. Atlas is ready for combat. Atlas was the ship's artificial intelligence, the most advanced computer humanity had ever built. It had been programmed with everything they knew about Zephyrian technology and tactics. More importantly, it could think and adapt faster than any human crew. Captain, called Communications Officer Lisa Park, I'm receiving the enemy fleet's transmissions. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Let's hear what they have to say. The bridge filled with the now familiar voice of High Divine Kazeth. His words carried across space with the same arrogance Emma had heard in Jake Martinez's recordings. Beings of the human infection, I am High Divine Kazeth, voice of universal truth. Your species has been judged and found wanting. You will submit to divine cleansing or face complete annihilation. You have 1 standard hour to surrender your homeworld. Emma felt anger burn in her chest. These aliens spoke of genocide like it was a holy mission. Open a channel on all frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Emma took a deep breath. What she was about to do would either save humanity or doom them all. This is Captain Emma Barnes of the Earth warship USS Defiance. I reject your ultimatum and challenge your fleet to single combat. The alien fleet's transmissions went silent for several moments. Then Kazeth's voice returned, filled with what sounded like amusement. Single combat? 1 tiny vessel against the Divine Fleet? Are you perhaps mentally defective? Human? I'm offering you a chance to prove your divinity, Emma replied. If you're truly gods, then destroying 1 human ship should be easy. But if you're afraid of a single vessel, the challenge was calculated to hit the aliens where they were most vulnerable, their pride. From Jake's reports, Emma knew that the Zephyrians saw themselves as superior beings who could not be threatened by lesser species. Afraid? Kazeth's voice turned cold. You dare suggest that the divine feels fear? Very well, ignorant creature. We accept your challenge. Your destruction will serve as an example to any who question our power. Emma smiled grimly. Atlas, you ready? I am prepared for combat, Captain Barnes, the AI replied in its calm, mechanical voice. All systems are operating within normal parameters. Good. Take us out from behind this asteroid. Let's show these false gods what humanity can do. The USS Defiance emerged from its hiding place like a shark rising from deep water. Compared to the massive Zephyrian fleet, it looked impossibly small. But Emma had learned from studying Jake Martinez's encounters, sometimes being small was an advantage. "Enemy fleet is moving into formation," Ben Murphy reported. "They're arranging themselves in a sphere around us. Classic intimidation pattern." "Let them intimidate," Emma said. "Kate, status on our special weapons?" "Quantum resonance torpedoes are armed and ready. Adaptive shields are at full power. We're as ready as we'll ever be." The Zephyrian fleet began to glow brighter as they powered up their weapons. Energy readings spiked across the Defiance's sensors as reality-bending forces gathered around the alien ships. "They're preparing to fire," Ben announced. "Multiple weapon signatures detected. Atlas, evasive pattern gamma. Let's see how good their targeting systems are." The Defiance suddenly accelerated to speeds that would have crushed a human crew without the ship's advanced inertial compensators. The ship twisted and spun through space in patterns that no alien computer could predict, because they were based on chaos theory and human intuition. The Zephyrian weapons fired, sending beams of pure energy that could bend space and time. But the Defiance was no longer where they expected it to be. The alien weapons struck empty space while the human ship danced between the energy blasts. "Impressive," Kazeth's voice carried across space. "You are more agile than expected. But agility will not save you from divine power." The largest Zephyrian ship, Kazeth's personal vessel called Wrath of Heaven, began to glow with ominous light. Emma could see energy building toward its front, preparing for a weapon that could destroy planets. "That's their main gun, Kate," Williams called out. "If they fire that thing—" "They won't get the chance," Emma replied. "Atlas, initiate attack pattern Alpha. Target their quantum field generators." The Defiance suddenly changed direction and shot straight toward the Zephyrian fleet. Its quantum resonance torpedoes fired in rapid succession, each one designed to disrupt the field generators that powered the aliens' abilities. The torpedoes struck several Zephyrian ships and created brilliant explosions of energy. For the first time in millennia, the aliens' perfect formations wavered as their ships lost power and began to drift. "Impossible!" Kazeth roared. "How do you know our weaknesses?" "We're human," Emma replied. "We learn from our mistakes, and we remember everything." But the Defiance's advantage was temporary. The Zephyrians were already adapting their shields to protect against the resonance weapons. Within minutes, the torpedoes would be useless. Emma knew they needed to press their attack while they still could. "Ben, target the lead ship's power core. Kate, transfer all shield power to the forward array. We're going in." "Captain, that's suicide," Ben protested. "They'll tear us apart." "Maybe. But we're going to make them work for it." The Defiance accelerated toward the Wrath of Heaven, weaving between energy blasts that could vaporize cities. The alien ship was so large that it had its own gravity field, and Emma could see smaller vessels launching from its docking bays to intercept them. "Atlas, defensive pattern Delta, keep those fighters off us." The AI took control of the ship's point defense systems and began shooting down the incoming alien fighters with precision that no human gunner could match. Explosions bloomed around the Defiance as Atlas calculated target solutions faster than the aliens could react. But the real target was the massive ship ahead of them. Emma could see its main weapon charging, gathering energy that would be enough to crack a moon in half. "Kate, can we penetrate their shields?" "Not with conventional weapons. But if we rammed them at full speed..." Emma realized what her engineer was suggesting. It would mean the destruction of the Defiance and everyone aboard, but it might damage the aliens enough to give humanity a fighting chance. "Atlas," she said quietly, "calculate the optimal impact point for maximum damage to their primary systems." "Captain Barnes," the AI replied, "such an action would result in the complete destruction of this vessel and all aboard." "I know." "Do it anyway." The AI was silent for a moment, processing the order. "Impact point calculated. Recommend targeting their central power core." Emma looked around the bridge at her crew. These were good people who had volunteered for what they knew might be a suicide mission. They deserved to know what she was planning. "All hands, this is the captain. We're going to ram their flagship. It's been an honor serving with you all." The bridge crew exchanged glances, but no one protested. They had known this might be necessary when they volunteered for the mission. The Defiance shot toward the wrath of heaven like an arrow aimed at the heart of a giant. Behind them, the rest of the Zephyrian fleet fired everything they had, but it was too late to stop the human ship. Emma gripped her command chair and watched the alien vessel grow larger and larger on the view screen at Mike. The last second, she saw something that gave her hope. Amy Watson's virus was working. She could see Zephyrian systems failing across their fleet as the computer infection spread. The USS Defiance, humanity's smallest warship, struck the gods' greatest vessel at full speed. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. The explosion of the USS Defiance and the wrath of heaven lit up space like a newborn star. The blast wave rolled outward from the collision point, buffeting the other Zephyrian ships and sending shock waves through their perfect formations. On the bridge of a nearby alien vessel, Commander Zyros watched in horror as his High Divine's flagship cracked open like a broken egg. The massive ship, which had been home to Kazeth for 3,000 years, was splitting apart in sections. Atmosphere and debris poured out of the wounds in its hull, along with the bodies of Zephyrian crew members who had believed themselves immortal. "This cannot be happening," Zyros whispered, his crystalline body flickering with disbelief. "The divine cannot be harmed by mortals," but the evidence was floating before his eyes. High Divine Kazeth's ship was dying, and with it, the illusion of Zephyrian invincibility. In the debris field, emergency transmissions crackled across the alien fleet's communication channels. Zyros could hear the panic in his fellow commanders' voices as they tried to understand what had just happened. "The humans have some kind of weapon that can penetrate our shields. Half of our ships are reporting system failures. The divine presence is weakening." That last transmission made Zyros's blood run cold. He checked his own ship's systems and found the impossible. Kazeth's life signs were failing. The being who had ruled this sector for millennia, who had claimed to be a god among gods, was dying. Through the chaos of the fleet's communications, a new voice cut through the static. It was High Divine Kazeth himself, but his voice was weak and filled with pain. "All vessels, converge on my position. The human ship has damaged my core systems. I require immediate medical assistance." Zyros had never heard fear in a High Divine's voice before. It was like hearing the universe itself cry out in pain. The other ship commanders were equally shaken, their perfect formations falling apart as they rushed to aid their leader. But as the Zephyrian ships moved toward the wreckage of the wrath of heaven, they discovered something that changed everything. The human ship's sacrifice had done more than just physical damage. Amy Watson's virus, transmitted in the final moments before impact, was spreading through the alien fleet's computer networks like wildfire. Systems that had worked perfectly for thousands of years began to malfunction. The quantum field generators that gave the Zephyrians their divine powers started shutting down. Across the fleet, alien crews found themselves experiencing something they had never felt before: vulnerability. On Xyros's ship, the engineering crew reported catastrophic failures in their primary systems. "Commander, we're losing power to the consciousness transfer matrices. If we cannot repair them, the crew will begin aging." Aging. The word struck terror into every Zephyrian heart. Their bodies were artificial constructs designed to transfer their consciousness between clone vessels when the current body wore out. Without that technology, they would die like any other mortal species. "How long do we have?" Xeros demanded. "Perhaps hours, perhaps days. The virus is rewriting our core programming faster than we can repair it." Xeros looked out at the wreckage of the wrath of heaven and made a decision that went against everything he had been taught. "Signal the fleet. We retreat to the outer system. We need time to understand what the humans have done to us." But other ship commanders were not ready to admit defeat. Divine Commander Therion, captain of the vessel Eternal Glory, refused. The retreat order. "We do not retreat from mortals," Therion broadcast to the entire fleet. "We are the chosen of the universe. One small human ship cannot defeat the divine." To prove his point, Therion ordered his ship to fire on the debris field, where the Defiance had been destroyed. The energy beam struck the scattered wreckage and vaporized what remained of the human vessel. "See?" Therion declared. "The humans are gone! We are victorious!" But his celebration was short-lived. As his ship's weapons fired, the energy discharge interacted with the spreading virus in ways no one had predicted. The feedback created a cascade failure that shut down the Eternal Glory's main power core. Therion's ship went dark and began drifting through space like a dead whale. Emergency power flickered on, but the magnificent vessel that had once been able to destroy planets was now helpless. Across the Zephyrian fleet, similar failures were occurring. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were losing power, losing their weapons, losing the technology that made them gods. For the first time in their long lives, the Zephyrians were experiencing mortality. High Divine Kazeth, trapped in the wreckage of his flagship, watched his empire crumble through his ship's failing sensors. The beings who had worshipped him as a god for thousands of years were beginning to question his divinity. Other species across the galaxy, monitoring the battle through their own sensors, were seeing proof that the Eternal Ones could be defeated. "This is impossible," Kazeth whispered to himself. "We are eternal. We are perfect. How can mortals threaten us?" But even as he spoke, Kazeth could feel his own artificial body beginning to fail. The consciousness transfer matrix that kept him immortal was damaged beyond repair. For the first time in 3 millennia, he was going to die. On the other side of the galaxy, species that had lived under Zephyrian rule for generations were receiving the sensor data from the battle. The images of damaged god ships and failing alien technology spread through their communication networks like lightning. On the world of Altros Prime, where the inhabitants had worshipped the Zephyrians for 800 years, massive crowds gathered in the capital city's central square. The planetary governor, a being who had spent his entire life serving the divine will, stood before the crowds with tears streaming down his face. The gods are mortal," he announced. "They can be hurt. They can be killed." The crowd erupted in a roar that could be heard from orbit. For the first time in centuries, the people of Altros Prime felt hope. Similar scenes were playing out across dozens of worlds. The Zephyrian Empire, built on the foundation of divine superiority, was cracking as its subject species realized their oppressors were not gods at all. Back in human space, Admiral Jake Martinez was monitoring the battle from Earth Command. The sensor readings were confused and chaotic, but one thing was clear. Emma Barnes and her crew had achieved the impossible. "Did we win?" asked Admiral Thompson, studying the tactical displays. "I don't know," Jake replied honestly. "But we proved something important. We proved they can bleed." As reports continued to come in from the battle site, Jake began to understand the full scope of what had happened. The Defiance's sacrifice had not just damaged one ship, it had triggered a cascade of failures across the entire Zephyrian fleet. Amy Watson's virus was spreading through their networks, shutting down the technology that made them seem divine. More importantly, the battle had been broadcast across subspace. Every species in the galaxy had watched humanity's smallest warship destroy the mightiest vessel of the Eternal Ones. The psychological impact was immeasurable. "Sir," called a communications officer, "we're receiving signals from across the galaxy. Dozens of species are declaring independence from the Zephyrian Empire. Some of them are asking for our help in overthrowing their local governors." Jake smiled grimly. Emma Barnes and her crew had done more than damage enemy ships. They had started a revolution. The galaxy was waking up to the truth that gods could be mortal, and tyrants could be overthrown. The war was far from over. The Zephyrians still had thousands of ships and millions of years of technological advancement. But they had lost something more important than any weapon. They had lost their aura of invincibility. And once people stopped believing in gods, those gods became just another species that could be defeated. 3 months after the Battle of the Defiance, the galaxy was no longer the same place. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled unchallenged for millennia, was collapsing from within as world after world declared independence. The virus that Amy Watson had created continued to spread through their networks, turning their own technology against them. Admiral Jake Martinez stood in the Memorial Garden on Earth, looking at the newest addition to the Wall of Heroes. Captain Emma Barnes's name was engraved in simple letters, along with those of her entire crew. Below their names was a single line: "They proved that gods can die." "Admiral Martinez?" a voice called behind him. Jake turned to see a young ensign approaching. The man looked nervous, as most junior officers did when meeting someone who had become a living legend. "Yes, Ensign?" "Admiral Thompson requests your presence in the command center, sir. We're receiving delegations from across the galaxy." Jake nodded and followed the ensign back to Earth Command. The building was busier than he had ever seen it, with representatives from dozens of alien species arriving to meet with humanity's leaders. The species that had once been enslaved by the Zephyrians were now free, and they wanted to thank the humans who had made it possible. In the main briefing room, Jake found Admiral Thompson in discussion with a group of aliens he didn't recognize. They were tall, slender beings with blue skin and large eyes, dressed in simple robes that suggested a peaceful culture. "Ah, Jake," Thompson said when she saw him. "I'd like you to meet Ambassador Kellis of the Andorian Republic. Her people were under Zephyrian rule for over 2,000 years." The alien woman bowed deeply to Jake. "Admiral Martinez, my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Your species has given us something we thought was lost forever: freedom." "We all deserve to be free," Jake replied. "That's what humans believe." "Yes, and that is why we have come." The free worlds are forming a coalition to ensure that no single species can ever again claim dominion over the galaxy. We would be honored if humanity would join us as an equal partner. Jake looked at Thompson, who nodded. This was what they had hoped for. Not human dominance, but genuine cooperation between free species. We would be honored to join, Jake said. As the meeting continued, reports came in from across the galaxy. The news was both encouraging and troubling. While many worlds had gained their independence, the remaining Zephyrian forces were becoming increasingly desperate and dangerous. Divine Kazeth had survived his ship's destruction, though barely. His artificial body was failing, and he knew he was dying. But rather than accept defeat, he had gathered the remaining loyal Zephyrian ships and was planning one final assault on Earth. "He's not thinking rationally," reported intelligence officer Patricia Wells. "Our sources suggest he believes that if he can destroy humanity, the other species will lose hope and return to worshipping the Zephyrians." "How many ships does he have left?" Jake asked. "Maybe 50 vessels, but they're all heavily damaged. The virus is still spreading through their systems, and they're losing more ships every day." Jake studied the tactical reports. 50 Zephyrian. Ships was still a formidable force, especially if they were willing to sacrifice themselves in a final attack. But humanity was no longer alone. "What about our new allies?" "The Andorians have pledged 20 ships," Thompson replied. "The Kalanti are sending 30. We're getting support from species across the galaxy. For the first time in galactic history, we'll have a truly united fleet." A week later, the combined fleet of free worlds assembled in Earth's solar system. Jake stood on the bridge of the new flagship, USS Unity, watching as ships from a dozen different species took their positions. The sight was beautiful and inspiring. Beings who had never fought together before, united in the cause of freedom. The Unity itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Built in record time using technology shared by all the Alliance members, it combined the best features of human adaptability, Andorian shields, Kalanti weapons, and a dozen other innovations. "Admiral," called Captain Susan Hayes, the Unity's commanding officer, "long-range sensors are detecting the Zephyrian fleet. They're approaching at maximum speed." "How do they look?" "Desperate, sir. Their ships are barely holding together. But they're still dangerous." Jake activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Martinez. The beings approaching us once claimed to be gods. They enslaved entire worlds and committed genocide on a scale we can barely imagine. Today, we show them that the age of false gods is over. Across the fleet, crews from a dozen different species prepared for battle. On the bridge of the Unity, Jake felt the weight of history on his shoulders. This wasn't just a battle for Earth's survival. It was a battle for the future of galactic civilization. The Zephyrian fleet appeared on the edge of the solar system like a collection of dying stars. Their golden ships, once magnificent and terrifying, now looked tired and broken. Many of them trailed debris and showed obvious damage from system failures. High Divine Kazeth's voice echoed across space one final time. "Mortals of the galaxy, you have been deceived. We are your rightful rulers, your gods and masters. Surrender now and your deaths will be merciful." Jake opened a channel in response. "Kazeth, your empire is finished. Your ships are failing, your people are dying, and the galaxy has seen through your lies. Stand down and we'll accept your surrender." "Surrender." Kazeth's voice was filled with rage and madness. "Gods do not surrender to insects. We will show you divine power one final time." The Zephyrian ships charged forward in a desperate attack. Their weapons fired wildly, no longer the precise instruments of terror they had once been. The virus in their systems had degraded their targeting computers and weapon control. The Allied fleet met them with coordinated fire from dozens of different weapon types. Andorian shield technology protected them from the worst of the Zephyrian attacks, while Kalanti particle beams and human quantum torpedoes tore through the aliens' failing defenses. The battle was fierce but brief. One by one, the Zephyrian ships fell silent and drifted dead in space. Their crews, deprived of the technology that had kept them alive for millennia, began dying of old age even as their ships were destroyed. Kazeth's flagship, a replacement for the wrath of heaven, was the last to fall. As it broke apart under concentrated fire from the Allied fleet, Jake felt no satisfaction, only sadness for the waste of life and potential. "Admiral," Captain Hayes reported, "we're detecting an escape pod from Kazeth's ship. He's still alive." "Bring him aboard," Jake ordered. "It's time for this to end properly." When the escape pod was brought to the Unity's hangar bay, Jake was there waiting. The being that emerged was barely recognizable as the terrifying God Emperor, who had once ruled a third of the galaxy. Kazeth's crystalline body was cracked and dim, his artificial systems failing one by one. "So," Kazeth said weakly, "the mortals have won. How does it feel to kill a god?" "We didn't kill a god," Jake replied. "We exposed a tyrant. You were never divine, Kazeth. You were just another species with advanced technology and delusions of grandeur." Kazeth laughed, though it came out as more of a wheeze. "Perhaps, but for 3,000 years I was worshipped across 1,000 worlds. Can you say the same?" "I wouldn't want to," Jake said. "Worship is for the insecure. We'd rather be respected as equals." As they spoke, Kazeth's body continued to fail. The ancient alien's life was measured in minutes now. "Tell me, human, what will you do now? Will you become the new rulers of the galaxy? Will you make yourselves into gods?" Jake shook his head. "We're going to help everyone rebuild. No more empires, no more gods. Just free peoples working together." Kazeth's eyes dimmed as his consciousness began to fade. "Impossible. There must always be rulers and subjects. It is the natural order." "Maybe for your species," Jake said. "But humans believe in something different. We believe in freedom." Kazeth died without responding, his ancient body finally surrendering to time. With his death, the last of the Zephyrian Empire's power died with him. Years later, Jake stood once again in the memorial garden on Earth. The wall had grown longer, filled with the names of heroes from many worlds who had died fighting for freedom. But there were no gods listed there, no divine rulers or eternal emperors, just ordinary people who had done extraordinary things. The galaxy was free now, governed by a council of equals rather than divine decree. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts and disagreements, but there was hope and choice, and the knowledge that no species would ever again bow to false gods. Jake smiled as he read Emma Barnes's name one more time. She had proven something important about humanity and all mortal species. They didn't need to be gods to change the universe. They just needed to be themselves.